Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we're excited to have you and can't wait for you to share with our listeners your individual story and kind of journey through the health and fitness space and IHP and all that good stuff. If you would you kind of share with us all kind of what you're currently doing in the health, fitness, wellness space?
Yeah. So currently I am obviously an integrative health practitioner, level 1. I'm also a certified personal trainer. And I currently also coach macros. So I have a couple different things. And to be honest, I really like to just talk to my client and see what their goals are, what they're looking to achieve, and kind of look at their overall lifestyle and put together their customized plan. If I feel like they're a good fit for a 6-week plan that I have, where we do a whole food approach, carb cycling, and also track macros, then I'll go ahead and put them in the 6-week plan. But I really kind of look at their overall big picture of what's going on right now. Maybe it is that we put them through the detox program that Equalife has, or maybe it is they just need me one-on-one, or I put them through the 6-week program. So it really just depends on what they need. It's not I don't really kind of have a specific, you got to do this, you got to do that. I like to just kind of make sure that I give them the service that they want and they need to hit their goals. So,
yeah, I think that's so important, kind of meeting all clients where they're at, because even though someone may have two clients may have a similar goal, they may not be at the same starting place. And so even though you need to get them both to the same place, there's a different route to get there, right? And kind of being able to pivot and adjust is, I think, such a great quality of a good coach, because then the client is able to kind of get what they need at the time that they're at, and you're able to kind of adjust that as you go. So that's great.
Right. Yeah. And everybody comes at you at different levels. There's some that have gone through the detox program and just need a plan to kind of get them back into, maybe they were not eating enough, or maybe they're eating too many carbs or too much fat. Or I like to those are the clients that I like to put on my 6-week program, where we can macro track to make sure, hey, are you eating too many of the carbs for your specific body, or too much fat? Or most women, we don't eat enough protein. So, that's a great guide where, if I have someone coming to me who is like, a little hesitant to that, then yeah, we do the one-on-one and I customize. And if I need to write workouts or share meal guides or anything like that, then that's what I like to do. So.
Yeah, that's a great approach. How did you kind of get started in the health and fitness space? Is it something that you've always done, always been your passion? Did you start off doing it from an early age? What's your background?
Yeah. So I basically started when I was in my mother's tummy. My parents bought the house that they still live in today, and he bought their specific house so he can build a gym. So he was very weightlifting minded, fitness minded. My mom also, she walked 2 miles a day. So fitness is what I've grown into or grown up with. It's not something that has ever challenged me. So, kind of having those two leaders, my own parents, looking at them as healthy. And, I see guys in my house lifting with my dad. And so that's why when I walk into a weight room, I'm not intimidated like most women, because it's what I've been around. Now I will say what I've always struggled with has been nutrition. And, it wasn't until in my younger years, it was one of those chicken fingers, fries, McDonald's, all of those things. And that was just part of how I ate. And even into my 20s and even into my early 30s, I didn't have to work, or I didn't have to think of nutrition, because at that time I thought I was healthy. And it wasn't until I started operating, I had 3 fitness franchises, and I don't know if it was the stress that triggered it all, or probably a little bit of the stress, but I developed high blood pressure. And that was kind of the start of my, I'm not as healthy as I thought I was, even though I looked the part and I was working out and running and lifting and all the things. Internally, there was a lot going on, right? Mm-hmm. So went and they put me on high blood pressure medicine in my early 30s. I was either 29, 30, somewhere around there, put me on high blood pressure medicine. And I remember the doctor was like, you're going to have to stay on it forever, because, high blood pressure runs in your family, which it does. And, you just go with that gut feeling. You're like, I think maybe if I clean up my nutrition and learn about this thing called nutrition, then I can get off of these pills. Well, then kind of, I didn't spend too much time there. I just knew I could do it, because then we went into trying to get pregnant. So my focus shifted to fertility. And, I had 2 doctors say, you will never have kids. You're already in menopause. You'll need donor egg. And I was like, okay. And, at 31, 32 years old and just being married to my husband, it was kind of like, how am I not going to have a kid or 2 kids, or how's this kind of, happening? But, keeping the positive spirit, I was like, okay, again, going with my gut, like, I think I just need to find the right doctor. I think I need to find the right fit for my beliefs and my, like, what I have going on. And I did find a fertility doctor, and I remember the room that we were in, my husband and I were in, and he's like, you are going to be a little bit of a challenge based on these numbers. He said, how long do you want to make this effort? And I said, I'll give it a year. I will be all in. And my personality is I'm all in. Like, I'm either all the way out or I'm all the way in. And I was like, you tell me exactly what I need to do. I will do it 110%. And he said, the first thing he said is stop working out. And I'm like, oh, wait, stop working out. No. Cause at that time I had too much testosterone and not enough estrogen. And there's a lot of numbers not balanced. He said, you just got to, and that put me into like, maybe I won't go 110, but cause that's been my life and my therapy too,
Yeah.
So he did say, he's like, you can walk and you can do like very light, not, yoga, Pilates, walking, things like that. It's like, okay, I'll do that, but for how long? And he also suggested acupuncture. He also suggested a whole food approach. And I'm like, whole food approach. Okay.
I like this doctor.
Right. Yeah. And at that time I was still in my whole mindset, like, yeah, I just got on high blood pressure medicine a year ago, but I'll clean up my diet at some point. I'll dive into this at some point. I just wasn't ready. And so then it kind of clicked. You've got to be ready now, because if you really want a child, you've got to figure out how to eat whole foods and not go to eat French fries and Philly cheesesteaks or whatever I was eating at the time. You've got to figure this out. So I started studying nutrition on my own, started doing acupuncture, started dialing my workouts back. And within 5 months, I was pregnant. And so it was, kind of that whole journey, that part there was, I feel, where I started looking at getting some kind of health coach certification. And, I had a nutrition certification through my training, but it was kind of one of those things I wanted to kind of look into other avenues. And there's a lot of big names out there that I was looking at, and my heart just wasn't in it. I'm like, this doesn't feel like the right fit for me. So that's whenever I just kept my options open, and kind of got to where I found Stephen Cabral. And I ended up meeting him at a conference in Orlando. And I was like, you know what? I want to check out his certification. And that's whenever I was, 5 months later, I signed up. It was like, here it is. And, through everything that I've learned through him, I've no longer have high blood pressure. Obviously I was able to conceive, and I actually have osteoporosis too. So I just did my bone density test. I'm hoping I've reversed it, but the last test I did, I was reversing it slowly to osteopenia. So everything that's kind of been coming at me these last few years through the power of nutrition and just really kind of being dialed into my healthier lifestyle, I've been able to completely change a lot of the labels that were labeled for me, and they're no longer there. So that feels good. So that's why I'm super passionate about like what he teaches and the cert. And, I just keep listening to all the podcasts. I'm like, what else can I learn? And then I have my own clients that they're going through their own journey. And I'm like, what else can I teach them? And you kind of crave it, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's how you're in the right business, so to speak, is because it like actually you wake up like wanting to learn more and, diving deeper that's when you know you're kind of, but one thing I want to circle back to, because made this reference a few times, was kind of like trusting your gut when the doctor said like high blood pressure, and then sorry, you're never going to have kids. And I think even, with the, maybe the bone density stuff like that, now, obviously, once you trust your gut and you realize that it's probably right, you get a little bit more confident in that. So you'll probably never second guess it again. But I think there's so many, whether it's clients of ours, but also just practitioners, that we really, where we got to the place that we were at because we didn't really let somebody else dictate what our future was going to look like. Somebody told you that you were going to be on high blood pressure meds forever, that you weren't going to be able to have children. A lot of people, and I think to no fault of their own, because I think we are just kind of programmed, or, to think that doctors know everything and they are the end all be all, but would just kind of listen to that and be like, do I want an egg donor or do I not? And if they don't, then they decide not to have kids. And if they do, then they go that route. But to take the power into your own hands, and this is one of my favorite things, really the most amazing part about being a health practitioner is the empowerment that you get to give to clients. And I think we always, or a lot of us, start by empowering ourselves. And when we realize like, well, I made a huge difference in my life. I have like completely taken something that someone said I will never have, and I have attained it by changing behaviors, modifying certain lifestyle. And you realize that there's a huge power in that to be able to then instill it in other people. So that kind of gut feeling, is that something that you pass on to, clients, and that you find is, a primary focus for you?
Oh yeah. And I think I say it at least 3 times a week. How are you feeling? What do you think's going on, or what's your gut saying, or, give me some thoughts. Because even, if I listened to every single doctor that I had, I would be on high blood pressure medicine still to this day, and I would think that, maybe children just aren't in my future. And I would have when I'm hearing all of that back in the day, it was like, well, I guess that's just not, going to be the trajectory of my life. But then, I knew. I'm like, Kelly, and I'm a fixer. Like, if you tell me I can't, or if something's wrong, I fix it. Like, that's just my personality. So I wanted to like prove the other 2 doctors who I never spoke to anyways wrong. It was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in. And yeah. So.
Yes. And I think, again, like doing it yourself and knowing like you're able to then instill that in your clients. And even though you are of that mindset, you're still checking in with how your clients feel. And again, I think societal type of, whatever constraints we're always just like, we're encouraged to just like numb it, mask it. Like, okay, you're depressed, take this. Oh, you're tired, take this. And we're just always pushing symptoms down and feelings, and just keep going and don't pay attention to all the things that your body's telling you. And again, a good practitioner checks in with their clients, even if they're on the right track. Like, how are you feeling about this? Because maybe they're not feeling great, even though they're eating enough protein or whatnot. And so kind of almost giving them that, power and that right to say like, oh, this is how I'm feeling. And just simply asking is such a huge way to empower others.
Right. Right. And you mentioned just something now. I completely forgot about this. 4 years ago, I was having bouts of depression, and I had gone about 12 years ago. I had pretty severe depression. So I kind of knew those symptoms and what that meant. And I walked into my OB's office and I was like, I just don't feel right. Something's off. I just don't know what it is. I'm really cloudy. I'm crying a lot, and, kind of just not my personal self. And she's like, you're probably depressed. But, I went with my gut again. I was like, it's not depression. Like, I have a lot of really good things going on in my life. Like, I've been there in the past, and it's not that. But she hands me depression pills, and I literally came home and I threw them in the garbage. I was like, this is not what something else is off. So that's whenever and it was before I knew about anything online. I went to a functional doctor here in Dallas, and I remember talking to her. She's like, I can see why you're off your levels. And, going through, I had leaky gut. I had basically at that time, my estrogen was really low, progesterone was really low, testosterone really low, like everything was really, really low. And she's like, let's get you back to balance. And I felt like a whole new human being. I mean, it took probably 6 months, 9 months for us to figure out what was the right fit for me. But again, didn't listen to that OB say, here, I think you're just depressed. Here's some pills. That's not.
Yeah. And even, I mean, like conventionally speaking, like just run your vitamin D, right? If everybody who was depressed, yeah, right. I mean, there's so many people who come to us and they have like major mood stuff and their vitamin D is in the teens. And it's like, that alone could fix 80% of the mood dysregulation that you're experiencing. And that's such an easy thing for even a doctor to run. But again, unfortunately, the way that they're trained is to just kind of like find a pharmaceutical and that will fix it. But it's interesting, right? The more natural, long fixing type of approach, it takes time. And again, I think we're just an impatient society that wants an easy fix. We want it to just go away. And usually the quick fixes are just Band-Aids and they're not actually going to solve the problem, right? So we can kind of get caught up in that quick fix. But yeah, another time that you kind of trusted that actually, I don't think I'm deficient in Zoloft. I think there's something else going on, and kind of listen to your own little voice.
Mm-hmm. And now I kind of look at that with my own clients too. I've just recently started introducing some of the Equal Life Labs. And I'm like, if this is what's going on, let's get tested. Let's make sure we know for sure. And with the help of, the coaches, we've been able to put together their own customized plan that works well. And there's some that I pull off of a workout plan because, I had to do that before too, but let's just dial it back. Let's do some maybe walking, getting back into nature, yoga, simple things like that. So, it's just kind of one of those things you've got to like listen to your body and talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and trust each other's, what they're giving, the advice that they're giving. So.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so interesting because I see like functional medicine labs all the time that it's not even a woman who's trying to get pregnant, but maybe she's 31 and she has a boyfriend and like someday she wants to have kids and her lab comes back and, ZRT puts her in some sort of like premenopausal range. And she's like, oh my God, am I in premenopause? And it's just because of how low her hormones are. And there's a reason why the hormones are low. And it's so often that our bodies as females, right? I think, and I've said this so many times on this podcast, that we are just biologically under way more stress than we were ever designed to be, right? Like we can be CEOs, we can be moms, we can be wives, we can be, you name it, PTO parents, but being all the things, even though we can, is oftentimes too much stress. Mm-hmm. Then if you're burning yourself out in the gym, it's like, well, we'll sprinkle a little more stress on top of the stress, right?
Exactly.
And so yeah, there's so many times where women who are underweight and their hormones are suffering, again, whether they want to get pregnant or not, and they're working out too much, it can sometimes be such a hard mental shift for women who, like you said at the beginning of the show, it was your stress relief. They're like, okay, I'm under stress, but this is what I do for my stress. But sometimes you're just, right. But you're putting yourself under more stress without kind of knowing. And so it can be such a complicated thing to tease apart, but I find it's one of the things that makes the fastest difference, especially with hormones and kind of getting a woman out of that fight or flight where we just pull back for a little bit, right? Everybody should be moving. Everybody should be kind of putting their body under some sort of resistance, but a kind of short-term pullback. Did you find it really, really hard? Because I also find that the women who want to get pregnant, they have a very strong motivation. They're like, I'll do anything. Okay, fine. I'll stand on my head. It's whatever you tell me to do. But women who don't necessarily have that right in front of them, it's a little bit harder to pull back on the working out. So what did you find with yourself and kind of what do you find with clients?
Yeah. So it was hard for me to pull back on my workouts, obviously, because like I said before, I've grown up in that space, like just being active and being an active kid. So for me, I had to find my happy somewhere else. And it was, spending quality time with friends, or it was going on walks, or, kind of bringing myself back. And, I think that was the hardest part for me. It wasn't learning nutrition and studying that while I was trying to get pregnant and all the things. It was pulling me back, because I'm already a very high energy person. I was exactly who you just described. I was all the things, like running 3 fitness franchises, plus, doing X, Y, and Z. And, I knew I had to pull something back. And I learned at that point actually to start saying no. And that's where I was like, if I really want this, I've got to, delegate and pull back and say no. And I really think that it was a hard shift in my own mindset, but I will say the minute he cleared me to work out again, I was all in. So.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, again, one of those, it can help in certain circumstances. It can it's a gray area, and every woman has a different experience. I always say, like, where's your stress threshold, right? If you've been like running all day, then going to the gym is just like more stress on top of that. If, choose to do your workouts on days that maybe you're not working, on the weekends is when your harder workout should be, so that you're not like constantly pumping that cortisol. So there can be ways that you balance it. But yeah, sometimes it just takes a pause. Do you find that your clients are receptive to the pauses, or do they have a hard time with it too?
They have a hard time because, for one, they hire me because they know I'm a trainer. So they think that that's the way that they need to go. And there are some, we can still do, whatever workouts that I have written for them. But there are some where I'm like, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's, maybe do a little bit slower and kind of just rein them in a little bit more. And that's always the hardest part, because a lot of my clients are like me. That's their release. So then, there's that other conversation of, okay, well, if you really can't let go of your workouts, you've got to let something else go. And let's talk about that. So I coach them through, is there something at work you can start delegating? Is there something, because most of my clientele, we're all moms. So is there something you can delegate with your kids' activities? Or is there something you can just say no? Like, you don't have to be all in with the PTA and, all the events, plus be a working mom, plus try and run a household. That's really hard, right? So what are you going to delegate? What are you going to say no to? And how are you going to give yourself space? And I always say, go in the closet for 10 minutes, be alone. Don't even bring your phone, or go outside and walk. Like, you need at least 10 minutes of just you, where you can collect your thoughts, where you can do some deep breathing, where you can just basically turn off mom mode, turn off wife mode, turn off career mode, and just be. And I say closet because, I had a little one at the time when I started that conversation. I'm like, I can't leave him and go for a walk because he's 2, 3, too young. So I would say, just go in the closet and they'll be okay for 10 minutes. Not, they're not going to get into too much.
Yeah.
And if they do, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. You can clean it up.
You can clean it up. Yeah. Your house should be safe, anyways. But now, I even myself, when I find my anxiety comes back, or you're a little bit off with like thinking about too much, or your mind's just in overdrive, I drop my phone. I go for a walk around the neighborhood. I don't listen to music. I don't listen to anything. I just look up and kind of like observe where I am now and try and reground myself. And it's hard to take my own advice, but I have to sometimes, and
yeah.
I've learned to say no.
Human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and the saying no thing is so important, because it just allows, like, there's an out, right? And I think where you probably are a super relatable, powerful coach. And we've talked about this on other episodes too, where our experiences are what kind of make us relatable. And you can say to a client, like, I know how hard this is. I know how hard it is for me to tell you to stop working out. I've been there. This is hard, like validating their experience with what you're suggesting. But I can assure you that there's going to be benefit on the other side of this. I saw that, but I also know how hard it is, right? And kind of giving them a little bit of that like grace with acknowledging what they're going through. But again, assuring them that it's going to be what's best for them and their goals at that given time.
Right.
And modeling it yourself, right? Like you're saying, oh, I'm still a work in progress. Sometimes I need to take my own advice. Same here. Like we're humans. It doesn't matter that you're a coach. Like just because we're coaching doesn't mean we're perfect. We're coaching because we're passionate about the knowledge we have and sharing it with others, not because we're some sort of state of perfection.
And kind of going off of that too, like there's a time and a place, I have a lot of women that come to me and they want to do weight loss and they want to build muscle. Well, if their internal systems are not functioning and firing in the right and properly, then that's the foundation. We've got to make sure that you are balanced and before I can say, hey, you're going to lose weight. Like a lot of women have hormonal imbalances. And it's kind of one of those things I know from my own experience when I was going through some hormone struggles, I couldn't get the weight off. And I knew, okay, I need to fix my internal systems before I try and lose weight, because the foundation is internal. And right now the external is it can't be important at this point right now because I've got to fix the internal. So there's also those conversations I have a lot with my clients too. Like, what's your overall goal? And when they say, well, I don't feel like my hormones are balanced. Okay, well, let's build that foundation and let's heal your hormones and really get that metabolism fired up in the right direction. Then naturally your body's going to respond and you're going to shed the unwanted weight, lean out where you want, build the muscle that you want. So those are other conversations that I love having too, because I feel like there is a time and a place where you can, work on the internal or you can work on the external. So
yes. Yeah. And
sometimes you can't do both and it's okay. Right. You got to start there.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes jumping over the internal to get to the external, you might be able to get short-term, quick results. But I always say sometimes you end up robbing Peter to pay Paul. You just end up digging yourself more into that internal depletion from what you've tried to, accomplish externally. And it goes away, but then it comes back. And sometimes the bite's usually a little bigger the second time. And our bodies, I think it's so important for women to also understand that our bodies are doing what is helping us essentially survive, right? Sometimes just holding on to that extra weight is because our bodies actually need it for energy production, for hormone production. It's in survival mode. It's trying to make sure that you have an alternate energy source should you need to keep running from the lion, if you're under eating or not getting enough nutrients. There's so many reasons why our bodies don't do what we want when we want. And I think if we can kind of find an appreciation for, what they're actually trying to tell us and how they're trying to serve us, it can kind of put us in a little bit of a appreciation rather than frustration.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I'm curious if, since you've kind of been through, several certifications, you kind of have your hands in a few different things. Do you have specific literature that you love, or one author that you kind of feel is super inspiring, or podcasts, or obviously there's Dr. Crawl and the Rain Barrel, but other things besides that that you would love to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I actually feel like I learned a ton from Sarah Gottfried. And I've read every one of her books multiple times. And especially whenever I have a client struggling with hormones, I'll pick another one up and skim through it. But I love just how she makes things really easy to read, and it dummies it down. I know she can probably get a lot more techie with things, but I feel like, she's been a great mentor. And the only podcasts I listen to are Dr. Crawl's, because for one, I would say he's another person that I'm either reading a Sarah book or I'm listening to Crawl's podcast, just because he's just a wealth of knowledge. And I don't know how he knows everything, but he does. He's amazing.
Well, because he's a perpetual student, right? He'll tell you he's always reading something. He's always, when you think you know it all is kind of when, things end. So he's always learning, which is amazing, because then he's teaching us what he's learning, and just when you think I don't know if there's a new topic he could possibly talk about. Oh, he finds one.
Yeah. Well, and that was the other thing that drew me to the certification, because I was looking, like I said, for a bigger certification to kind of help me with building my knowledge. And when I started reading his book, I literally got halfway through the book and I was like, he's the cert. That's the cert I want. Like, that's who I'm going to go with. And because the other ones just weren't, they were so vague. And, I already knew enough that I didn't need to go that route. I wanted the more internal. I love that he goes into gut health. I think that's the foundation, and hormone health and all of the things that he goes through. That was what I wanted to learn more. And I'm still learning. Like I literally listen to at least 3 of his podcasts a week. And I'm like, just when, you just learn so much. So,
yes. Yeah. And it really, similar to Sarah, he simplifies it. It's such complex, ideas, I think, to people who don't understand it, but he simplifies kind of like, these are, it's just the whole rain barrel concept. Like there are toxicities and there are deficiencies. If you take out the toxicities and you increase your deficiencies, now your body is in a much more balanced place. And that concept, when you think about it, is super simple. And explaining it to somebody who knows nothing about natural health or kind of the internal workings, it's a really, approachable but super beneficial way to kind of get somebody started on, more of that holistic journey.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
He lays it out. Because I'm not very sciencey, when you get into all of that, but he lays it out to somebody that is very, basic and just wants to learn and grow. So yeah.
Yep.
That's
why
I
agree.
I've referred the certification to so many people, like, because people know I have it. So they're like, well, tell me a little bit more about it. Like, here.
It's hard to describe. Have you found that? Yeah. I have people ask me all the time, like, oh, should I do this one? Should I do that one? And I could spend a half an hour trying to explain like why, other broad programs are just not going to give you the depth of knowledge that this is. But I always end by saying, I'm really not doing it justice. Just trust me. This is something that you will not find anywhere else. It's knowledge. And it's kind of a way to help clients that is like nothing else you could find right now. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. I just say, start listening to the podcast. And if he speaks to you, then it's the right fit. Cause that's what happened to me. So it was, he spoke to me on a different level and the level that I needed at that time. And it was one of those things too. I was not only going through my own health journey, my sister and her family were going through a mold journey where they lost their entire house to mold, everything in it. So, it was like, I want to learn everything that I can to help her. And yeah, so, it's been one of the best, it is the best certification out there if you want to just learn and grow. So.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. If a listener's kind of listening to our chat and wants to learn more about you, where can they find, a social media page or a website or any kind of places where you'll show up?
Yeah. Instagram is where I love to hang out, and it's at Kelly_T_fitness. And I also have a website, kellytfitness.com. And yeah, those are the 2 places, but Instagram, I'm on it a lot. So it's fun.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. This was such a valuable conversation, and I appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.